So how did I get to Harvard after having no education? I did it not right away. I'm Daniella, scholar of cults, extreme groups, and extremely bad leadership. I wrote a book called Uncultured about growing up in the Children of God religious cult, going into the cult of the U.S. Army. You can read a lot about my life there. You can get signed copies here. So I grew up in the Children of God cult, right, where we had no education. We had some books, some form of homeschooling sometimes, but pretty much no education. They would make sure we could read and read aloud quite well, write basic math, etc. And then it was kind of whatever, right? The kids were gonna confront the enemies at the gates one day and be like the smart ones. And we could sing and we could dance and we could perform and we could work. The kids ran the commune. The kids did the majority of the labor, as cults are always about labor and always about getting labor from children. In fact, in the book I'm writing now, The Culting of America, we see that the exploitation of labor is key to cults, but the exploitation of children's labor is what is the most key to cults. Okay, so I was taught, however, though, how to BS pretty good. And one of my primary skills is like reading aloud, reading comprehension, writing, just being quite gifted with words. And even when I wasn't given much of an education, I still had that. So I come out at 15, I'm dropped into a 4,000 kid high school, and I take 22 tests to test out of things so that I can be in high school as a 16-year-old. I'm able to test out of everything, basically history and English-wise, just from BSing and using the little that I know. I'm not able to test out of most math and science. Okay, so somehow I fumbled through 4 years of high school and 2, because high school is fairly easy. And I even get into college, and this has a lot to do with Miss Raybon, who's a wonderful Black woman who's my counselor, who helps me get into college. The reason that I emphasize that she is a Black woman is because 4 times throughout my life, there has been a woman who has seen me and seen that I needed help and has just helped. And every single time it was a Black woman or a brown woman. And I have just a lot of respect for that. And it's something that I think about a lot. Okay, so I went to college. I went to University of Texas at Dallas, just one of the state schools in Texas. I had been dropped in Houston. I went to Dallas. And I studied, most importantly, something that I loved and something that I knew I could be good at, which was literature. Reading books and writing about books. I could do that. And I also see now that one of the things I was doing was putting myself into a super high control environment again, so that I didn't have time to think and break down. So I was working between 1 and 4 jobs. I was working really hard to make straight A's. I was the valedictorian at graduation, so I was really working that hard. But again, it wasn't a science or a math. I had to do something that I had the option to do. I've always only been left to the arts and the soft sciences because they don't have a rock solid mathematical and scientific foundation, which is sad and unfortunate, one of the costs of the cult. Okay, so then I go into the Army, and the Army, it takes you as an officer if you have any degree at all and can meet, whatever other qualifications and hoops they make you jump through. So I go into the Army, I become an intelligence officer, and this I'm very good at. And I joined the Army only to become an intelligence officer because I knew I would be good at being the expert on the enemy and reading these reports, analyzing them, etc., etc. I learned a whole bunch of other things in my 6.5 years in the Army. I become a captain before I get out. I am in the right place at the right time to become one of the first women on a deliberate ground combat team. You can read all about that in Uncultured. And then I leave the military after 2 deployments and 6.5 years. Now comes when I do the Harvard degree. So already with a bachelor's degree and a history as a military officer, and most importantly, military benefits. During COVID, I did the master's program at Harvard for organizational psychology, which is like group behavior, but group behavior because we're going to change you. And I did that through Harvard's executive program, the Harvard Extension School, which is the only place where they teach organizational psychology. At the time, it was a hybrid program. At the time, it was a program where a lot of it was online but you still took 3 classes in person. I feel like this was the snobbery, so that you couldn't say you had a Harvard degree without having actually been there and like knowing some of the things. However, I did it during COVID, so all of that was suspended. Everything was online. That was important because the GI Bill, or the vocational rehab, which is what I used to do my thing, still paid us as though it was an in-person program, because technically it was. It was just suspended for COVID. However, as they went to all online for COVID, they realized that, when your program is tied to a place, then you can get the best people tied that can get to that place. When your program is all online, you can just get the best people. So right at the end, like my last semester, I think it was considered an all online program, which sucks for veterans because you get half the money for your living stipend, because for some reason they decided your house doesn't cost as much if you're going to school online. That program is an earn your way in program. So you take 3 classes, you have to get a B+ or higher. You also have to have $10,000 to just throw away if you can't get in. You still have to do an application. They just guarantee you that you get in. Lots of people try to be like, oh, it's not a real program because they don't make it super hard for you to get in. It was hard. And also, I like to tell people that say that, like, let me see your Harvard degree. Okay, anyway. So yeah, that was how I did it. And I love to say like anyone can do it, but I got a free $50,000 Harvard master's degree because of military benefits, right? The U.S. Army is definitely the cult that pays the most benefits. That being said, there were a lot of people there. Most of the people there were not military. Mostly they were having their organization was paying for it, or people were paying for it themselves. And I will say that being able to say I have a degree from Harvard does change everything. So I can see that paying off for people. However, of course now, Harvard has always been very problematic, but now it seems like they're really just trying to put their name in the dirt as much as they can. So hence why I have a t-shirt that says Harvard is my favorite cult. I wish I'd been wearing it today, but I'm not. Anyway, that's my Harvard story. And now, but the really cool part was that, so they conferred the degree in March of 2022, of 2023, and that was exactly month to month, 20 years to the day since I had walked away from the cult. Then graduation was 2 months later in May. On my birthday, May 25th, I got to wake up in the morning, put on all my Harvard regalia, go to the Harvard bookstore, sign my own book, and then go to see Tom Hanks give the graduation speech. Somebody else getting an honorary degree. It was their birthday as well. So all of 30,000 people in Harvard Yard serenaded me for my birthday. Then after graduation, I had to turn in my cape, robe, whatever they call it. So, and it was Boston in May in the evening. So I needed to get something warm. So I went into the Harvard bookstore and I found the gaudiest Harvard bathrobe ever that sometimes makes an appearance on here. Then just walked around all night in a dress and a bathrobe, my Harvard hat, my first generation sash, and then we went and got Brazilian food because Boston is where all the Brazilian immigrants go, and I grew up in Brazil, and it was the most perfect day of my whole life with my little family, Mr. Knitting Coat Lady and Knitting Coat Baby, and I got to graduate from Harvard after growing up in a cult. It was lovely. What I have to say about the actual experience is the education was good. The student experience was garbage, and they do not care because they are Harvard.